Hello everyone, welcome to Bari's Book Reviews. This is episode number 13. Today's book is Princess Bari by Hwang Sok-young, translated by Sora Kim Russell. The Korean title is Baridegi. The English edition was published in 2015, and the Korean original was published over a decade earlier in almost a decade earlier in 2007. Truly a world-class writer, Hwang Sok-young is fully deserving, in my humble opinion, of his place alongside the leading international writers working today. He's unafraid to delve into the most disturbing aspects of the profound social changes that are such a key part of modern Korean history in books like The Guest and The Ancient Garden. At the same time, many of his novels have an international dimension, or at least some of his novels have an international dimension, in which he contextualizes Korean experiences alongside significant world events. Princess Bari connects the North Korean refugee experience with human trafficking in China, terrorist attacks in London, and the lives of so-called illegal immigrants and refugees the world over. I thought it was a remarkable work by a writer fully engaged with the modern world. And alongside his most recently translated novel, At Dusk, it reveals a writer working at the very peak of his powers and capable of finding humanity in the darkest recesses of the human experience. Princess Bari isn't just a novel dealing with the contemporary issues of political asylum and terrorism. Hwang Sok-young is also drawing on Korean myths and legends. So I'm not an expert on Korean folklore by any stretch of the imagination. However, one of the most important and famous myths in Korean shamanism is the one of Princess Bari, Bari Gongju, also known as the abandoned princess. The story of Princess Bari is apparently handed down by word of mouth in various places, including Siberia, northern Manchuria, and all across the Korean peninsula. In this epic shamanist tale, the hero travels to the world of the dead for the salvation of mankind. So like many of the hero's journey stories famous from various cultures, this is the story of the seventh and last child of a king who has no sons. The myth focuses on the life of this shamanic goddess, Princess Bari, who was abandoned at birth by her parents because of her sex. However, her journey to the underworld in search of the elixir of life leads her to being reborn. After successfully completing her mission, the princess is transformed into a goddess who can go on to help the souls of the dead pass from this world into the other. She becomes a powerful goddess who accompanies the spirits of the dead on their journey from this world to the heaven of the afterlife. So, how does Hwang Sok-young use this legend to tell his modern story of a young woman growing up in North Korea? Princess Bari tells the story of a girl born in the North Korean city of Cheongjin in the mid-1980s. She's the seventh daughter and she's abandoned by her mother shortly after birth, only to be rescued by the family dog Hindungi. And this incredible escape brings a Korean myth to the mind of the baby's grandmother, and the child is eventually named Bari after the tale's heroine. As Bari grows older, life in North Korea becomes even harder, and the time eventually comes when the family is forced to flee in order to survive. As she crosses the border into China, Bari witnesses her family and friends die one by one, and she's forced, like her mythical namesake, to embark on a long and difficult and tragic journey through China, ultimately ending up in London. This isn't just a straightforward realist depiction of modern immigration. There's also a strong fantasy element. Bari inherits her grandmother's almost magical gift for being able to read the pain of others and cure them in unlikely ways. She communicates telepathically with her dog, and she can also communicate with her deaf and mute older sister, also through this gift of telepathy. Likewise, she can speak to the dead. She sees ghosts and contacts her dead family members. She uses her talents to give foot massages, which do much more than ease aching feet and joints. They provide her with visions and a glimpse into people's souls. In her dreams, she continues her journey into the realm of the dead, acting as a messenger for the living. The final section of the novel finds her living in England. And so how does Hwang Sok-young describe the immigrant experience of Bari and those around her in England? This is by far the saddest part of the novel, almost unbearably sad in parts. She does make it to London. There she meets a Muslim man, a fellow immigrant. They fall in love. She lives in a community of immigrants from various parts of the world, mostly people who are fleeing adverse political conditions in their home countries, all trying to build lives and living in fear of the immigration authorities. While she is living in London, there is a terrorist attack. This was a real terrorist attack Hwang draws on. I'll quote a little section from Wikipedia. The 7th July 2005 London bombings, often referred to as 7/7, were a series of coordinated terrorist suicide attacks in London, United Kingdom, which targeted commuters travelling on the city's public transport system during the morning rush hour. Hwang Sok-young makes this book about the global experience of immigration and political asylum. He shows how these huge forces affect individuals. This is a novel with a very humane message. I thought it was an amazing piece of work, and everyone should read it. Today's book is Princess Bari by Hwang Sok-young.